Hey there. You know how you love to really dig into the crossroads of tech and culture, right? Well, buckle up, because today's deep dive, is a fascinating one.
Where is?
We're going deep on a question that feels so relevant, especially now in the age of like AI and big data everywhere, right? Is privacy a universal value? And get this, we're going to specifically be looking at how the concept of privacy might be viewed differently in India versus Western cultures.
Okay.
And our guide for this whole thing is, believe it or not, a master's dissertation on, get this, the philosophical roots of privacy in India.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? Super interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, in the West, I often talk about privacy as this basic human right.
Right.
But this dissertation really made me stop and think, where did that idea even come from? You know?
Yeah.
Like, is it really that simple?
Well, one of the things the dissertation points out is that even Western philosophers have gone back and forth, like, for centuries, trying to define privacy. You know that classic phrase, the right to be left alone.
Right.
Gets thrown around a lot. But the dissertation makes it clear that even this whole idea of a right to privacy, it hasn't always been around.
Right.
It kind of evolved alongside other big ideas like individual liberty and self-determination.
Which makes sense if you think about how different societies, like historically, how they viewed things like personal space, family life.
Oh, totally, yeah.
I mean, imagine trying to explain the concept of private property, like, I don't know, to someone living in a nomadic tribe or something.
Right.
You know, what we consider private in our world, it's shaped by, well, the world around us.
Absolutely, yeah. And the dissertation, it digs into how over time, Western thought kind of started connecting privacy to owning property, controlling your information, even like having dignity as an individual.
Right.
And those are all values that like are pretty core to the whole idea of Western democracies. What do you say?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so it sounds like we're saying even in the West, privacy, it's not this one fixed thing. It's more like, a bunch of ideas all woven together.
That's a great way to put it. The dissertation even argues that there's no single, like, universally accepted definition of privacy, even within Western thought.
Well,
it's more like, imagine you're looking at a family, you know, you see those resemblances, overlapping features, but no two family members are, like, exactly alike.
I like that. So it's not as simple as saying privacy equals X. Okay, so there are shades of meaning, different interpretations.
Yeah.
Even in the West.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing that complexity is going to get even more, complex as we shift over to India, right?
Absolutely. Because there you have a whole different historical and cultural context that might have shaped a different perspective on privacy.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. We're going from the West all the way to India.
Yeah.
And we've all heard it before, right?
Right.
India, oh yeah, they have a totally different view on privacy.
Yeah.
But is that really true?
Yeah.
And if so, how is it different?
Well, this is where, honestly, the dissertation gets super interesting.
Okay.
And even just thinking about, some of your own experiences traveling.
Right.
It's not just stereotypes. It's about how different cultures actually, live out different values in their everyday life.
Totally. And I actually remember reading about this. It's pretty common for colleagues in India to be super open talking about things like their salary or family stuff at work.
Yeah.
Things that, at least in my experience, would be kind of taboo, kind of private.
Yeah.
Not really something you just chat about at the water cooler.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because even the way Indians translate the word privacy, it can be really telling.
Oh, right.
Often it's closer to secrecy or confidentiality. Like you're protecting specific info, not just trying to be alone.
Huh. Which, that actually reminds me of something else I read. It was an article, I think, about Indian homes and how it's totally normal to have your bedroom door open.
Oh, wow.
But if you close and lock the door, whoa, that means something's up.
Really?
Secrets going on, not just needing some me time.
It's interesting.
Total opposite of how we see it.
Wow. It's funny how those little everyday things can reveal such different ways of thinking about what's private, right?
Totally.
And the dissertation actually connects this back to India's history. Their long tradition of oral storytelling where knowledge and stories are meant to be shared openly within a community.
Right.
Not just kept to yourself. And there's also this concept of high power distance. Basically, it means there's this deep-rooted respect for authority and hierarchy.
Okay.
So it's not just me and my stuff. It's about understanding how you fit into the larger group.
So it's less about that individualistic, my data, my privacy thing, and more we're all in this together.
Yeah. And here's where it gets really interesting if you think about technology.
Yeah.
Because India has really embraced these like digital public goods, Aadhaar, UPI, those big systems that use tons of personal data.
Right.
So how does that work if Indians view privacy so differently?
It's funny you say that because, like, from a very Western point of view, that always seemed a little, I don't know, contradictory. Like here, one little data breach and people freak out.
Yeah.
But the dissertation talked about how people in India, they seem to have this like really high level of trust in those systems. Even after some breaches happen, it's like they're willing to, I don't know, take that risk for the greater good.
Yeah, and that's what the dissertation calls mutual privacy.
Mutual privacy.
Yeah, like imagine instead of my data, my privacy, it's more like our data, our responsibility. The idea being that if everyone shares openly, it actually benefits everybody, even if it means, maybe giving up a little bit of your own individual privacy.
Like that village idea, right? What's good for the group ends up being good for you too.
Exactly. And the dissertation suggests this whole mutual privacy thing, which is like really baked into Indian philosophy and their culture. Maybe that helps explain why they're more comfortable with those digital public goods.
So we really dug in on how the West and India view privacy, huh? Two very different starting points, wouldn't you say? What really stood out to you?
For me, it's like this whole deep dive, it kind of forces you to ask, is privacy really a universal value after all?
Right.
And the dissertation, it doesn't exactly give you a straight yes or no answer.
Which I kind of feel like speaks volumes. We started out with that big question, right? Is privacy universal? And now it kind of feels like, I don't know, almost naive to ask.
Yeah, like you're comparing, I don't know, apples and oranges or something.
Totally.
And, even in the West, there's this growing awareness that privacy, it can't always be just about the individual.
Right, especially now.
Especially in the age of AI, big data, all that.
Like with mutual privacy.
Exactly. Our data, it's all intertwined, right?
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not.
So maybe it's less about like privacy is over and more about, I don't know, like how do we rethink it? Like if my privacy affects you and your privacy affects me, how do we design these systems to like, I don't know, find that balance?
Those are the $1 million questions, right?
Totally.
And I think, honestly, the West, we might have a lot to learn from how India is approaching all of this. And I don't mean just copying their systems or anything, but understanding like the values driving their choices. Things like community, trust, that shared responsibility idea.
It's pretty amazing, right? We started with privacy, but it feels like we've kind of landed on something much bigger. Like all the different cultures are trying to figure out this whole like individual rights versus the collective good thing in this digital world.
Absolutely. And this conversation, it's only going to get more and more important.
Totally. The further we go with all this tech.
Exactly.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of privacy across cultures. Definitely got me thinking. We hope you learned something new today, maybe even challenged a few of your own assumptions. Until next time.